Earlier on, somebody here made reference to the KZN unrest. And now the question I want to pose is that, in your opinion, do you think that the occurrence of that unrest and the way in which it appeared to have been coordinated in a highly sophisticated way would have been prohibited if the security forces, especially at the crime intelligence level, were marching in unison in terms of dealing with that issue? Or it was just as overwhelming as it was, that there was no possibility, never mind what was the state of our crime intelligence, to deal with that situation?
If I were to talk about the issues of the unrest, I spoke about the Human Rights Commission.
Yeah.
I must say upfront, in that Human Rights Commission, the Speaker of this Parliament, who was a Minister of Defense at the time, said bad things about me in that Human Rights Commission.
The former Speaker of Parliament, yes.
Yeah, the former Speaker, who's now he's an ex. She's no longer in Parliament. Mm. She said bad things when she appeared before the Human Rights Commission. And she said what she said. I picked up the phone, I phoned General Mkhwanazi. And I asked General Mkhwanazi, I said, Minister, you were in that meeting. This Minister of Defense says when they arrived in KZN, a group of ministers, I started addressing them about things that have got nothing to do with the state of security that existed at the province at the time, but I addressed them on things that were necessary. You can go on YouTube and replay that when she appeared before the Human Rights Commission. After learning that, I phoned General Mkhwanazi and I asked General Mkhwanazi, do you want me to go to this Human Rights Commission and tell the South Africans about the close meeting that I had with you? What did we discuss? And General Mkhwanazi pleaded that I shouldn't do that. It was difficult. I didn't do that. But that stayed with me. That I deliberately left an operation. And I went to entertain my wife because she gave birth to a child during the thick of things. That was her words. And if I were to highlight on what transpired there, the riot started and the riot ended. The ministers had to come in a day before the president came to assess the damage done already. They flew into the province. They arrived in the province, they wanted to be briefed because they must be ready for their boss that is coming. So they were not part of the operation. Yes, they participated in a mop-up operation, not in the violence. The violence was long gone. When they landed, we briefed them about what has happened, past tense. And they stayed there, the president arrived, then they briefed the president, and from there I left. What she did not appreciate, even at the time, was that I got into the aeroplane after the riot. I flew to Pretoria. My wife gives birth today. The following day, I took her out of the hospital with a newly born, and got into the vehicles. We drove 1,000 kilometers to transport her to her parents. And I left her there in a safe place, and I got on the aeroplane and I flew back to Durban because I cared about the safety of the citizens in the province. But we have the Minister of Defense who doesn't appreciate that, who says to me, I left the operation, I entertained my family issues. So I took an offense on that because it was bad. Close meeting that we are having. They arrive in the province, the Premier is sitting there, Mr. Sigalala, the Minister of Defense, State Security, Police, and other MECs. The first request to them was that, can we excuse the rest of the junior members? I want to address you as executive, and the generals of the army, and the head of State Security at the time. They agreed. Others left. We sat in that meeting. I wanted to vent my frustration as a member of the security cluster in government, as a general in the police. The fortunate part that has happened to me is that I've been working in units that work very close with the military. So I've got colleagues in the army that talks to me from time to time. We exchange training. I know the challenges they're experiencing on a daily basis. When I address those seniors on the day, The first thing I started with, say that I was political or otherwise, but I had to shoot straight. Then I said, all of you sitting here, I believe you are coming from the same political party. Your interest must be aligned, all of you. This interest is the safety of this country. But what we have allowed to happen with the security cluster is not fair. It's what brings us here today. And I started an examples, and I started with each one of them. I said, Premier, you did A to Z. And that's not right. Minister of Defense, you go to the national TV, you say there's X number of soldiers deployed in KZN, and you're lying. The colonel in charge of the province in KZN has got 150 soldiers. The 150 soldiers don't have vehicles to get out of the base. And those few vehicles that are there don't have diesel, because there's no contract on diesel in the military. And those diesel that are being sponsored by private sector to get into those vehicles, the soldiers can't get out of the base because they've got no place to sleep in Devon. They don't have a place to sleep because they've got no tents. The tents are old. The military have not bought them tents. Why those things are happening is because there's no budget allocated to the military. Then you have a minister that wanted me to disclose that at the Human Rights Commission. And I said it in a closed meeting. But she went out there and make it look me as a bad person. I'm saying it now, what transpired in that meeting, closed meeting. If all of them are there, they will tell you. Some of the things I addressed in that meeting, coming back to your question, was that I had asked the Premier, I've asked the Minister. I said, declare the state of emergency here now, not tomorrow. And the state of emergency must shut down social media communication. Had we done that at the time, we were not going to have the destruction that we had. Because honestly speaking to honorable members, the public was angry about the arrest of the president. It was not a planned thing. I hear analysts and everyone else and the reports that came out that says it was well coordinated. That is wrong. It was individuals that saw what the court has done, the ruling they came up with, and they were upset. And they felt it cannot be that the president is going to be treated like this. So they were spontaneous in their response. There are members of the African National Congress that were there in the homestead, trying to control the crowd themselves. I arrived at one stage, I had to tell some of them. I think there's a Reverend Dube amongst the people who were there, trying to assist the police. And I said to him, Reverend, don't stop these people, they're angry. Just leave them. Let them go and gather there and vent. If they are not, you're going to have problems. They are angry. Let them vent. They are not disturbing anyone here except violating the COVID rules without wearing a mask. Other than that, they're not violating anyone. Don't provoke them. So it was what we were seeing that had happened was the people that were angry that started in the morning by blocking the road at John Ross, Richards Bay. The blockage happens, it gets taken on the social media, it gets sent all over, and people see what has happened in Richards Bay because people are angry, they block the trucks. Yeah, here at Show, let's do the same thing. Here's a truck here with sand, stop this truck, offload this sand on the road. Create distraction. Social media and say, oh, now they are doing it in John Ross in Bangani, they're doing it at Show, where that's also at Mkhwanazi, ban this truck that is driving on the road. They ban the truck. And then, because of the social media communication, then we have the president's daughter who says, oh, so and so, we see you in that area. We see you in that, and then somehow people get fuel then from there. But how it started was just anger that started. And when then started fueling, then we started having communication on WhatsApp. They start saying, this is how you make a petrol bomb. And let's come together, let's go and break in that place. Let's go and break in that place. And people start mobilizing people to go and steal polonies and cheese. And that's why it became a mayhem. It started slow like that. And then we had the Ngizwes who decided, let me go and encourage the Gauteng people to join in. It's not something that was originally planned. It's something that evolved as it happened because of the anger from people. Could the police have done something, or the security class have done something to prevent it? I say yes. If there was a decision, a willingness from the executive authority to shut down the social media, because they were using that to mobilize. They were using that to spread the message. I said the former boss of SABC is not necessarily my favorite person, but it's something that is profound, he once said at one stage. that do not publish this violence that is happening here, because you are encouraging other people to learn from this and they also do it at the same time. Might not be a wrong thing to do, but this transparency, sometimes encouraging lawlessness to multiply. That social media that captured the wrong that happened during the riot, when it started, encouraged more wrong to happen on the day. And then we end up blaming law enforcement. Yes, we should have shut down social media. That means they will not have communicated on WhatsApp. They will not have mobilized each other easy. And when they were calling, we were going to be able to listen to them. We had gadgets that were kept in the storeroom because one of the 5 ministers who were supposed to sign and give us a permission to use it did not want to sign. As a result, we couldn't listen to the phones. And yet we had equipment that we had bought and was sitting at crime intelligence offices not being used. So those are some of the challenges we're experiencing then. So what I'm trying to explain there is that security class as a whole has been weakened over time. And the one that has been weakened the most of them all is military. And it pains me because if everything failed from the South African Police Service, those are the big brothers we must go to. If we can't go to them because we are better off than them, then there's a problem in the country. Because that means the country is not safe. So I'm not a soldier. I'm not motivating for money to go to the military that much, but I can tell you, for my own safety, for the safety of this country, if we're not taking the security serious, military being the first point of departure, then intelligence and the police, we're not going to have a country at all.